Okay, we are with Mr. Dan today for Veterans Day. This is Veterans Day, different from Memorial Day because we honor the living soldiers. Memorial Day is where we honor the ones that didn't make it home. But you have right in front of you a living man, a survivor, and one of your homeschool teachers. And what do you have for Mr. Dan? Well, let him open it. Just hand it to him. Let him open it. So,
thank you, AJ.
we would like for you to accept this from both AJ and myself. We say happy Memorial. Here I'm saying Memorial Day. Happy Veterans Day, and you can wait on that. Now, don't you get all sobby-eyed and emotional about it. But we just wanted you to have something special. So this is what AJ did. And this is my son's handwriting. You want to read that?
We appreciate you, we thank you, and we love you.
And this is, AJ colored that for Mr. Dan. And then Mama was, got a little creative too. Now, I probably didn't color their uniforms just right, probably. But, dear Dan, thank you for your many years of service to our country. I know it was a sacrifice for you and your family. Thank you. Love, Ruthie. And thank you for all that you do for our AJ and our family. So, please accept these drawings as a token of appreciation.
Thank you.
And we've got one more thing.
And, you could probably just use this as a paperweight in your garage. So we wanted you to have something special.
Don't break it.
Thank you. It's
Get out and
beautiful.
show it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like, I guess what they call a prism, I guess. And,
No, that's too pretty to go in his garage.
Yeah, that ain't going in my garage.
I figured you could use that as a paperweight or something. I don't know.
No, I get too dirty. It's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I know it's not a Medal of Honor or anything, but it's something that we wanted to give you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you.
You're welcome. And now, AJ, you are dismissed to class. Well, wait a second. Come give Mr. Dan a hug.
Thank you.
Aw. So Mr. Dan and his wife Virginia do the homeschooling for AJ. You got a test to take, don't you?
Yes, he does. You ready?
Okay, go study hard while I talk to Mr. Dan. Well, Dan, I just want to say thank you so much for sitting down with me today on this Veterans Day, November 11th, 2022. And I know I kind of took you off guard. I just texted you last night and this morning and said, would you do an interview for our channel? But I appreciate it very much, and I know I put you on the spot. And we know that you and I have discussed off camera that there are certain things that you cannot talk about. And I understand that, and I know that, so I will try to steer away from any questions that would lead to that. But why don't we just start with, how long have you been out of the service?
I retired from the United States Army in 2014, in July.
Okay, July of 2014. Okay, so that would make that about 8 years ago then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how many years were you in the service?
15.
15 years. Okay, that's a big chunk of, and you and I are the same age. I will say that I'm 5 months older than Dan. He's got a birthday coming up, December 3rd. December 3rd, that's not classified information, is it? December 3rd, he will be the same age I am. I'm 44, so we were born in the same birth year of 1978. So what year did you go into the service?
I went in the service in March of 99.
March, that would make you 21 or almost 21.
Yeah.
You had just turned 20, or is that right?
Roughly, yes.
In December. Yeah. No, I'm not even doing math right in my head, but I know I was 21 in 1999, and we're the same age. But anyway, is this something that Do you have a family history of service? I mean, did your parents serve? Do you have a sibling that served?
My parents did not, but I have second cousins that did serve in the service.
Okay, so are they your inspiration? Is that why you wanted to serve?
They are an inspiration to me. Once I had joined, I discovered a lot of this. I joined the service because I was headed down a bad path in my life, and I wanted to get my life in order, and the way I could do that was serve my country and also help myself get better.
And probably one of the best decisions you've ever made.
Yes, it was.
Now, why did you choose the Army as opposed to any of the other branches of service?
Well, Army rules.
Oh, you heard it first from Dan Spinler, Army rules. But so you felt like that for you, that was the best branch for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, was there any the other family members, the cousins, were they also in the Army or other branches?
Mainly Air Force.
Okay, Air Force. Now, my father was in the Air Force, and I've explained this to AJ that my dad actually got out of service before he even met my mom. So I did not grow up as what they call a military brat, I guess. And I never have understood that expression. Why call people brats? I never have understood that expression. But I did not grow up as a military brat because my dad did his service before he even met or married my mom. And so even though my dad is a veteran and he is buried at the Kentucky West Veterans Cemetery in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, his funeral was the very first military funeral I had ever been to when he died 8 years ago. So my life was removed from the service. My dad is a veteran, but that was never a part of my life. But for you, you've raised children being in the service. So whereas I was removed from that, is there a reason why they say military brat? Is there a reason for that?
Well, they tend to know a lot about how the military works as they grow up in a military family, and they tend to do their behavioral tendencies. But I wouldn't say it's any worse than any other child. It's just sometimes you run into a child that goes out and does things just because it's against the rules, you know?
Right. Just kind of...
they may not fall under the regulations of the military, but they still have to obey certain policies and procedures of the installation.
Now, did you ever have to move your 3 children? Did you, in your service, did you actually have to uproot your family and take them?
Yes, I did.
So is that something you can talk about?
Yes, it is.
Do you care to elaborate on some of the places you've lived?
In March of 99, I joined the service, and in late 99, I met my now wife, Virginia Spinler. That was another part of a big change in my life, because I was still kind of a rebellious person at a young age, and it kind of helped settle me down for the military as well, you know. Met my wife, and I married her in 2001. At this time, I was stationed at the 101st Airborne Division. In 2002, I had orders to go to Hawaii, and took the family, went to Hawaii, did 2 or 3 years there. I had at that time exited active duty and moved to Iowa, and I did reserve time in Iowa for approximately a year and a half. At that time, I did not like not being in the service, doing what I did. I enjoyed it. So I went from reserve back to active duty in 2007. And from 2007 to 2014, I finished out my time.
Okay, so you thought that maybe at first that you were just going to take a break from active to reserve, and that just didn't work out for you.
Yes, that's right.
You didn't like being reserved. You had to get right back into it.
Yes.
So now Hawaii sounds nice. Is that the paradise that everybody says it is, or was
to visit, but not to live.
Really? Now your complete countenance just changed when you said that. You had some real, you have some real feelings about that. So tell me why Hawaii is a nice place to visit, but not to live.
as a military soldier, the income that soldiers got at the time, it's much better today. But at the time I was stationed in Hawaii, I was not a very high-ranking individual, and at the rank I was, supporting 3 children and a wife that was sick at the time, the cost of living so high there, even with the extra money you get for being there, it's, as a low-ranking person, it was very difficult.
You know, that makes me sad to hear that. It does. It makes me, we in our modern phones, right? You're fine. You're fine. Call back later. Okay? You're fine. It makes me sad to hear that, because you don't want to think about those serving our country struggling. You don't want to think about that.
I mean, you have a budget, you know, and when, as a low-ranked person, and gotta have transportation, and then you're raising kids and school and all that, you know, nothing's free. And at that, like I said, it's much better today, and towards the end of my career, middle end of my career, pay-wise, I didn't join for the pay, but I did have a family to take care of.
Well, that's right.
So it was a struggle, you know. The things you could and want to do, it was real hard to do because of the amount of income.
I have always heard, now I know this only from third-party sources, because I've never even as much set foot on the sand beaches of Hawaii. I've never been to Hawaii, and I have always heard that, just like you said, the cost of living is so high there.
It is very beautiful, but it is very expensive.
Is that because of the issues of bringing in the commodities from the?
Oh, you got to bring in all the goods and stuff, and that costs money, and then they got to get it from wherever they get it from, and wherever they, you know.
Right, because it's isolated. It's right there, you know, in the
It's a
Pacific.
little island.
Yeah,
it takes 3 hours to travel to island.
Wow.
You can get
So,
one side
my goodness, wow. So, just bringing everything in, and but did you? Hopefully, you at least enjoyed the scenery. Did you have any beachfront property?
We had a lot of beach fun. We still made fun with the kids, and we had good times and Christmases, and we had a good time. It's just not a place that I would want to live.
Economically, it just didn't work out, right? It was like you said, just like you said, it's nice to place to visit, but not to live.
Right.
So, if you are willing to disclose to me, what is your highest rank?
I got retired as a staff sergeant. I got retired medically early, but I had enough years to get everything I have earned.
Okay.
And so should other veterans as well that have served their country honorably.
Okay.
I've been to many other places. A few other places.
But has most
my
of
pay grade retirement is an E5. The label is an E6.
okay, so you're getting E5 pay, but E6 rank.
Right, because I was promotable.
Okay, all right. Now
It's hard to explain.
That's fine.
That's how they do it.
But the highest is an E9. Is that right?
No, E5.
Oh, E5. Oh, okay. Now the
I
E.
held the position of a motor sergeant, which is usually an E6 and E7.
So how many people were you responsible for? How many soldiers?
Anywhere between 5 and almost 30.
So at any given time, you could have been a command over 30 soldiers?
Not command, but responsible and in charge of, yes.
Well, to me, I'm sorry. I guess I just used the wrong word, but...
It's okay. I was not a commander. That's a job that, my commander could have had all that responsibility he wanted.
Okay.
It was enough for me.
Okay, so you weren't a quote-unquote commander, but you were...
I was a non-commissioned officer.
Okay, but you were responsible at some time for at least 30 individual cadets or newbies, yes. I guess. That's a lot of responsibility. Is that something you need to take? Do I need to pause this?
No.
Okay.
You're good.
Dan is a very busy mechanic, and if his phone dings, it's probably a client. So thank you so much for doing this interview, and hopefully they'll be patient. But I can pause the interview if you need me to.
They'll be fine.
Dan is a mechanic. He has his own business. It's called Spinler's Automotive. Is that right?
It Spins Automotive.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Spins with 2 N's.
Okay.
Spins Automotive Service and Repair.
His last name is Spinler, but he calls his business Spins with 2 N, Spinn apostrophe S, Spins Automotive. And anyway, so he is a one-man show. He does it all. Now, did you learn a lot of mechanical skills in the service?
I learned mechanics before I joined the service. It just benefited me over time to learn more in depth about diesel work as well.
Okay, so you had a good working knowledge going into the service.
Yes, I did, ma'am.
And that did served you well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you tell me, since we were just talking about you being responsible for younger soldiers, can you maybe pinpoint one particular incident where it was not very pleasant to be responsible for other people?
Some soldiers come from areas and lifestyles that they've always had to be independent. So sometimes dealing with soldiers like that can be a little more challenging, and what good word to use? They can be quite challenging to steer and
rebellious.
Yes, they can be rebellious.
So did you have to? And maybe this is not a good word, but did you have to be a father figure to some of them?
Some of them, yes. Some of them needed it and enjoyed it, and some of them they feel like it baby them. And our job as soldiers is not to be a parent. Our job is to train ready to fight.
Now, did you have one incident where you had somebody that just was not ready for a grenade?
Oh yeah, it was years ago. We don't want to talk about.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll have to bleep that one out. But anyway, he had a lot of responsibility taking care of other soldiers. So
I dealt with equal opportunity, which I guess they now call SHARP. I hazmat certified. Different area. I dealt with hazmat shipping as well as maintenance operation stuff. I equal opportunity, make sure everybody gets their fair rights and stuff at all different levels. Representative. I got a lot of different things that benefit me in my civilian life while I was in as well.
Was it hard to climb through the ranks, or was that something that you were easily able to do?
For the most part, it was pretty easy for me to do. When I got in the middle ranks with the point system they used to go off of, I don't think they do it exactly the same now. They may. In the MOS I was in, it can be difficult to make the next one, but it's part of it. Responsibility. You know, just because your day at the office or training is done, that don't mean you don't need to take self-efficient responsibility to do stuff that will help you make it through the ranks even faster.
So you talk about responsibility. Do you think that you are successful in what you were able to achieve and accomplish? Do you think that young people that struggle with a sense of rebellion, struggle with a sense of taking responsibility, is it always a good idea to put them in the military? Does it work? Does getting responsibility, is that always the finished byproduct of coming into the service or not?
Some people just aren't meant to do it. It's a very challenged process. It is. When I was going through, it was a very challenged process to mold people into being able to do what their responsibilities would be, whether support elements or to infantry. Different levels of responsibility for different things, but the number one thing is you train as you fight, and you got to be ready to fight no matter what your job is.
So you have to make them teachable.
That's what basic is generally for, but we continue to teach and train once they go through basic too. make the NAIT to make them more independent, sufficient, so they can achieve what their goals are, or even be better than what we were.
So I'm going to ask probably a controversial question, and just kind of get your reaction. Was it different for you? Was there any difference, or was there a difference between being responsible for teaching both male and female?
No, not really. I had some great women soldiers that were just as good, a couple even better than some of the males I had. I never viewed them as different. A soldier's a soldier to me. Gender doesn't matter anything.
Well, I guess I'm asking.
Respecting their needs that they need met.
Sure, I guess I'm asking because I know that a lot of women watching this probably will take offense, and I don't mean for women to take offense, because after all, I am a woman myself, asking this. But what about the physical requirements, like the things that a male, we obviously know that a male body is built different than a female body. And I'm not talking just about the role of gender. I'm talking about the physical ability of a male versus female. How did that come into play?
Well, I mean, yeah, the bodies are built differently, but there are things that females can do better than what males can do. Females can do, in general, they say females can do sit-ups a lot easier and better than males because of the way the body is. There are advantages and disadvantages to either gender, and put them together, any mission can be achieved.
I like what you just said there, that acknowledging that both genders have their disadvantages, but when you blend the unit together, it can work. I like that, Dan. I like that, and I don't want to get in trouble with any female audience. I like what you said there, and so you had no problem training females how to shoot to kill, I guess.
No. I train each individual the same. Each individual requires the same training. Some need more training than just the basics. But the stuff that train on is repetitive, so they don't forget it.
Right.
But some of the other places I had been, I had been to, I was in a place in Nebraska during my reserve time. That was after I got out in Hawaii. And then when I went back active duty, I went to Fort Carson, Colorado. In between all that, I had been to Bliss for annual training, and I've been to Fort Hood before, Fort Carson, Colorado. That was my last duty station as a duty station. No, I take that back. It was not. I went from Fort Carson, Colorado to Fort Knox, Kentucky. I retired out of Fort Knox, Kentucky. I was deployed on 2 different tours out of Fort Carson, one to Afghanistan and one to Iraq.
Wow. Okay. I guess in my understanding, and I apologize, I thought that some of your deployments were through the 101st.
We were attached to 101st. On our Iraq deployment, we were attached to them. They were our superior over there. Basically what we call a battalion, that's who we answer to pretty much.
I didn't know, and I'm showing my ignorance, I didn't know that one unit or one, I didn't know that, how do I want to ask this? I didn't know that one division could be superior to another division.
Necessarily don't go like that, but one unit can be attached to basically like a subordinate to another unit or division.
Okay.
Divisions usually go out of division.
I didn't realize that. For some reason, it strikes my fancy to let people know right now, and I don't know why, but I feel like I need to insert this in the interview. Mr. Dan has been really great about trying to teach AJ first aid. Dan and Virginia both kind of tag team as AJ's homeschooling teachers, which I am so grateful for. And he gets things that he gets through homeschooling with Dan in Virginia that he would not get in public school. And Dan, being military, has really stressed the emphasis of how important first aid is to my son. And now, were you involved in like medical issues, like in like
No,
a medical?
Every soldier's trained in first aid. Some soldiers get a little more knowledge in combat life-saving skills.
But you weren't like a
med.
you weren't like considered what
But
they have like a medic.
I was not a medic.
But a
It's
medic
basically
is
a pre to what a medic would be, and then go medic to a hospital.
okay. But being in the service, you know how important that initial first aid is.
Yes.
And so he's been now. AJ hasn't been the best student. I'm putting that on film. He hasn't been very studious and hasn't applied himself, but Mr. Dan has given my son every opportunity. So it's to your credit, not to my son's credit, but Dan has given AJ all kinds of opportunities to learn about first aid because it's very important and he could actually save somebody's life.
First aid and life skills are very important. Life ability as far as being able to stay alive in a time where it ain't provided for you.
Yes, and we haven't gotten to this yet, but Dan does plan to teach AJ gun safety with Stephen and I's approval, because that's not something you'd get in public school. Can you imagine going into public school and getting gun safety in public school? So you're going to.
I remember the day we used to be able to have the guns in the back window of our trucks when we went to school. In about my high school time frame, that changed and that was not allowed no more. Gun-free zone.
No, that I think Columbine happened in 1999, which that's the year you went into service, 99,
Yes,
and that's the year Columbine happened. And so a lot has happened since Columbine, but we're tapping into the resources that we have here with Dan, a retired military man who can teach my child first aid, which I just wish I wish my son was more willing, and gun safety. And you are planning on to teach him all about weapons and how important it is to have gun safety.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's important. And so I can't emphasize enough how valuable Dan and his wife have been in our family. We have known Dan in Virginia since May. We've known them for 6 months, and they have seen our child every school day since August, and they've been a very big part of our life. And I just want to take this opportunity publicly to say thank you for that. And why don't we talk about some of these? Do you want to elaborate on what some of these are?
So the medals you see here, the Iraq campaign. I don't have the one for Afghanistan in there. I gotta get one because I'm not sure where it went. I have the ARCOM that's in here. I have a few of those and a few AAMs.
Now, did you have like pinning services where they pinned these on you? Is that how that works?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the command, but they usually give a box. They pin it on you and then you put it in a box. Because unless it's a certain type of service, you usually wear your ribbons.
What do the ribbons mean? Can you explain those ribbons to me?
This one is your basic. This is your service ribbon. This one's my overseas ribbon, which is actually incorrect. That should be a 3, not a 2. That's my NATO ribbon that I earned when serving over Afghanistan. Or Iraq, I think Afghanistan. That's the Iraq campaign. That's the global war on terrorism. That's my leadership ribbon. And B-knock and A-knock completed. It's, for basically E6 and E7. PLDC and B-knock I was getting ready to do a knot, but I had to get out because of medical reasons, so I retired. This is I have to remember. I can't remember which one is which one. One's global war and terrorism, and the other one is something else. I'd have to
That's
look
fine.
it up. That's the Afghanistan. This is the AM and ARCOM of those, and that's a good conduct medal.
Well, I say don't worry about not necessarily remembering, because just looking at the ribbons, that's amazing that you can actually remember. I mean, well, I guess you're a soldier, of course you're going to remember, but I'm just saying that you know what all those different colors represent and mean and everything. So that's pretty impressive to be able to recall them off like that.
And these are unit citations that were earned.
So what does that mean?
You're asking me a question. The unit citation is citation that the unit earned either while serving or the unit earned years ago when you served for them.
Okay, all right. And so
Some of those citations goes under you individually earned, so that's why.
Okay, all right. And of
that
course,
is the 101st Airborne. I just didn't put another one of these in here of that because I had that from my dress blues.
yeah, that's fine.
That's usually the combat patch I wore was the.
Okay, and the 101st is literally just down the road from us in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. We are not very far away from Fort Campbell, Kentucky at all. And so Iraq and Afghanistan, those are the two countries you were in?
Yes, and that's the air assault. I was air assault qualified.
Okay.
It's where you
So,
sling low missions or you repel, all that kind of
can
stuff.
I just ask a blanket question, a general question without asking specifics? You've been in Iraq and you've been in Afghanistan. Could you at least tell me which one was more difficult and why?
Afghanistan. A lot more stress. A lot more risk, a lot more dangers, a lot of insecure stuff that was still in the process of being insecure that I can't really say much more.
Of course,
It's more of not about what the mission was, and I'm saying a lot more danger.
right, and that makes it obviously more difficult and stressful. So now your family lived with you in Hawaii and also stateside, but you didn't have to take your family to Iraq and Afghanistan.
No, I wouldn't even dream of it.
But they don't make people do that, do they?
No,
they don't send families
No,
over there.
no, they
Because
wouldn't.
that's a direct war zone, right?
They would never send family over to places like that.
Okay.
9/11, I sit there and I was a young soldier, and I wouldn't say I was totally responsible yet. Still learning the ropes of the military, and from work area one day, my wallet came up missing. My ID card obviously was in my wallet, and then I had approached my supervisor and told him, and we were in process of finding time to go get a new one, which we should have done right away, but stuff was kind of really busy, and who knew that 9/11 was going to happen. So that day, when 9/11 happened, security was so tight. They would, even with my supervisor, couldn't get me on base without going to the commander of the post.
A bad day to lose your wallet.
Did
you ever find out if it was stolen or you just lost it? Did you ever find it?
It came up missing out of my locker, but my locker wasn't locked.
So you think another soldier stole your wallet?
Maybe not. Not everybody's good.
Right.
It does happen.
Right.
Sometimes we misplace things. So I'm not going to accuse nobody in general.
But so I guess
Hold on to them IDs because they're important.
Yeah, so the one time that his military ID goes up missing, and so it was shortly after you lost it, you were in the middle of trying to get it replaced, and then all hell breaks loose with 9/11.
Yes.
And even though you were an established soldier on post, you still could not get on post, even though you were a soldier.
Until they went through the post commander to get authorization to bring me on.
So that just and that had been the most
as it should be.
As it should be. They weren't just going to take your word that you were Dan Spinler.
Right.
But so I just that everybody remembers the day that happened. Well, everybody in our generation, let's just put it that way, not the younger people growing up, but I remember where I was and what I was doing on September 11th, 2001. But you were a newlywed.
Yes.
You were a newlywed. You were married on August
10th of
10th.
2001.
So you were married on August the 10th, 2001, and then 1 month and 1 day into your marriage, being on the honeymooner mode that you were, that's when basically your world just came to a complete
Change.
change. And so that changed kind of some dynamics. It set some dynamics for your early years of marriage.
I did.
So nobody wants to go through anything like that ever again in our country. But that's just an example right there that those of our generation and older, and you know what, Dan, it's hard to believe that there are people in the world right now that were not even born for 9/11. I mean, does that make you feel old? It makes me feel old.
My body's been through a lot. It feels old.
Yeah,
I
mean,
think my number's still decent, but it does feel old many days.
we can teach like when the anniversary of 9/11 came up, I asked Miss Virginia to kind of talk to AJ about that in her history class and watch some videos about that. And so we have to be proactive in teaching our young children. We have to be proactive in teaching them about 9/11 because
Children need to know our history. Our history may not always be the best history, but to prevent from repeating history needs to be known, not hidden.
that's right. And closing thought, because we're not going to, I know you, Dan runs a very busy business with him being a one-man mechanical show. So I'm not going to prolong this interview, but I do want to say that one thing that you wanted AJ to accomplish is being able to read the Declaration and Constitution.
Yes.
You want to talk about the script and how it's important for him to know the handwriting?
I think it's very important for every child to know our nation's history, good and bad. Because to prevent bad from happening again, you need to know it in order to prevent repeating what happened years ago, whether it being in our country or another country's ordeals. We can learn from both. Knowing the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, to me, is very important. Because to this day, I took an oath from when I signed up. I would defend the Constitution. And to me, that oath never expires. So, if you don't know what the Constitution is, or what the Declaration says, then how can you support fighting for it? How can somebody, if things turn bad in our own country, know what their rights are if they don't know what it says? So, and I think cursive is a big step that was being taken towards cursive. It is a very important thing because to read those documents, you need to read cursive.
Well, I understand that, people have translated them to the print, and you can read a printed copy, but you're saying that it's so important to be able to read them as they are.
Yes, because anything can be changed. Any word can mean something else to another way. It's changed. So the original document should never be not known. Everything,
Right.
You should know what the original and how it's read and read it.
Dan.
And that's every American. That's just not AJ or Ruthie or me, because ultimately it's every citizen's responsibility to know and understand it, because that's your freedom and that's your rights. And the fall of Rome happened, and they fell from within, and we don't want to be like Rome.
No, and one thing that I certainly value with you being around my son, there's many things that I value, Dan, about your input in AJ's life, but I think that one of the top things that I truly appreciate about you is that you are trying your best to instill in my child a sense of patriotism, a sense of love of country, I know that Virginia was helping AJ to learn all his states and capitals so that he could at least understand and know where all these states are and know who we are as a country. And she's done a lot with him with the history of the states. But you really have a driven sense about you that you want AJ to understand that this is our country, and you've got to fight to protect the rights, because you, as a soldier, once a soldier, always a soldier. As a soldier, you have a sense of duty, even though you're retired. You still feel a sense of honor and duty to this country, and you're trying your very best to pass that on to my child. And I really appreciate that, because you're not going to get that in the public schools.
No, not everything needs to be violent. There's ways to do it without violence. But no matter what avenues are taken, preferred nonviolent. The point being is you can't defend what you can't read or you don't know. So learn it, know it, at least read it and understand it.
And is it my understanding, or am I just making this up in my head? Aren't they trying to erase, the public schools are trying to erase some of our history and not teach our children?
Yes. In my opinion, from the things I've seen, yes. They're trying to teach what... They're not teaching the history, the real history of what our country was founded on, what it stood for. Like I said, all of our history ain't pretty.
No.
It's not pretty for anybody, because nobody's perfect. But our history is what it is, and we can't change that history. But what we can do with that history is prevent the bad history from being repeated, and try to do nothing but moving this country, continuing moving it forward. However that may need to be done, the better for our children, the better for our families, the better for our nation.
Dan, you are a real patriot. Just because you have officially been retired on paper, that does not really amount to a hill of beans, if that's the expression, because I know that you truly are a patriot at heart, and you, when you took your oaths, you're going to take them to the grave.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is a nice note to close on. And I just want to say again, we have been with Dan Spinler, and he is married to Virginia Spinler. And they, did you want to pop your head in here? She's in the background. Come on, give me a cameo.
Oh, come on, babe.
No,
Come
no
on.
cameo. Okay, all right. We got some.
I don't like video.
Shit. All right. Well.
Being in on my.
All right. Well, his better half is being camera shy, but anyway, Dan, I hope that I have been able to do you justice, and I hope that I've been able to help keep this interview flowing, and I'll edit out what I can't use. So I thank you so much for that, and thank you for your time, and most importantly, thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you.